Good morning, everybody. Just a quick show of hands. How many in this room have heard of Bloomberg before? How many of you actually used Bloomberg before? All right, good. All right, so there'll be some context here that you'll understand and go back to the platform. So for those of you who have had the opportunity to use the platform, there's a lot of data, market data, news data, social media data that we've acquired over time to put on the platform. So for those of you who either aren't familiar or have never used the product before, our marketplace are financial players, okay? So we are focused on both buy-side and sell-side players, anywhere from insurance companies and asset managers to broker-dealers across a number of different asset classes, okay? And they have a lot of information at their disposal on our platform, but primarily what I'm going to focus on is what we do in the news and social media space, right? I'm not going to deal with market prices. I'm not going to deal with asset prices. But you all know, because you use news in your day-to-day workflows, just try to find out what's going on in the world, right? Our corpus is dealing with what's happening with financial people, what's happening with companies, what's happening with assets, and probably what's happening geopolitically, right? That can shift the decision-making of a particular market player. So in order to give our clients a product, right, we accumulate data from both our newsroom, Bloomberg News, and then from the web, from social media. And this is kind of a dramatic experience of, if you just decided to look at a news feed on Bloomberg, this is what you get, right? Now, we give our users, which we call customers, ways to filter that data. You can filter it on a company, you can filter it on a person, you can filter it on keywords, and all these other things that are pretty inherent in search engines. So they're able to pare this wall of text down as they see fit, for the most part. But there are also different workflows. A trader may look at this and be perfectly fine with that because they believe that they can pick and fish out the relevant pieces of information on the securities that they're trading. I've got no problem with that. A portfolio manager may say, I don't need this so much. I may read some more long-form analysis on a particular company. I may want a deeper dive, or depending on what I'm doing at the moment, like coming in to work on a train or sitting in a cab, I may want to get something that's at a glance. So a wall of text in real time isn't necessarily the thing that's going to help me in that moment, right? If I'm searching, if I'm browsing, or if I'm monitoring, depending on which workflow I'm in at any given point in time, we want to do a little bit more to help our users sift through this abundance of information. I mean, we're talking millions of stories, over 100,000 plus sources, web scrapes, et cetera, plus all the normal content, Wall Street Journal, New York Times, et cetera. So what we started to do is talk to our customers about what they thought would be a better experience as we kind of created a problem for ourselves. So because we have millions of news stories that we ingest into our system each day, and although I think we've done a really good job creating a taxonomy and a classification system that makes the news that people want pretty easy to find, we really didn't have any products that sat on top of all of that news and started to create different experiences to cater to some of those workflows that I talked about earlier. And so what we started to do is think about ways that we can create thematic user experiences using machine learning and natural language processing, specifically in this case, in order to kind of summarize across all of that news what were some of the key things that were being talked about across all the news that was being created, right? On an earnings day, you're going to get news about earnings. That's what everybody cares about. But on a non-earnings day, you're going to get the news that you see at the top of the fold on any newspaper or any website, and you're going to cut across New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Barron's, Financial Times, and everything. But you're going to go horizontally across all these sites. Well, we have all this content. So how do we kind of create that experience so that users don't have to hop? So we created this query-based solution that we call, it's not really that creative of a name, but key news themes, right? It's pretty straightforward. And what we did is we took NLP techniques and we said, well, how do we look across these clusters of news and actually create an experience that allows our users to ingest, digest, and figure out what are the most important things, or at least understand what's happening across, right? Importance might be a little bit more subjective, but that's how we talk about it internally. So you see some of the questions up here. Well, why did crude fall so fast? You might get some headlines because you're going to know what the big story is because everybody's putting that in front, depending on which media source that you're going to, or were the shares of GameStop up so much in the first quarter? Well, everybody knew that story, but maybe at first I had plenty of clients coming to me going, where is this coming from, right? So that goes to the social media angle. Or what are any other questions that you may have, or what are the questions that you may not even know to ask yet because you didn't see this small bit of news that was down here in the corner on some screen on Bloomberg or elsewhere because an editor hadn't put it to the top of the newspaper or pushed it on some alert notification on your phone. So what we've tried to do is really collect that intelligence, understand what that news is behind the scenes, and present it in a way that we think is pretty digestible. So your traditional system, I've alluded to it, is going to be a query-based system. I want something on Apple. Here we go, another wall of text about Apple. Anything that's going on with Apple, anything that our system tags to Apple is going to be in here, but it's not really broken up in a way that's easy on the eyes and understands what's happening across these. Again, you might fish, you might find a few things that you're interested in, but we're not really giving it to you in a way that we think is going to be digestible. So you have this traditional query-based system. I think we do a pretty good job at giving everything what they want. There's no FOMO, fear of missing out, going on because they have everything in front of them. But it doesn't fit every use case. So this is an example. If you look at Apple on any given day, you're going to get 871 articles. That's just a random number, but you can get that many articles, and they're all going to stream in front of your face. You see some of these summaries accompanied by representative headlines. Apple releases iOS. Apple's working to bring more financial services. And these are all things that are going to stream by, but you're not really going to catch all of them, unless you do and you click on them. So what we've done is we've clustered these similar stories. We've ranked them by importance, right? So we have some algorithms behind the scenes that allow us to predict what are the headlines that are most likely to get read based on history of those headlines, keywords, et cetera. And we are clustering these things together, and then we're using natural language processing, as you'll see in an example, to create these thematic summaries, right? So the machine's creating the summary, the system's picking the stories, and then we're trying to put it in a way that allows users to actually digest it and make sense of it. And this is probably a workflow that goes to, hey, it's like a morning paper, right? So right now you go to a morning paper, you've got human editors putting what those biggest stories are. We're saying we're not going to editorialize. We're just going to basically say, hey, this is what's happening, and these are where the biggest clusters of news are, and then we're just going to create a wrapper around them in the form of a summary. Right? So we're just seeing where the action is, and we're just pulling that action out and saying, well, this is what it is. And then we're giving representative stories. So we extract those labels, we put them on a screen, everything starts to look nice. So here's an example of our user experience. Again, for those of you who use Bloomberg, everything's amber, everything's black, everything's gray. If I could get magenta on one of these screens, I'm probably winning, but it's never going to happen. Mike doesn't like that. So, sorry, Mike. So this is what the screen generally looks like. So pretty basic layout. You've got a search box at the top where you can put some query, right? Again, company, person, topic, could be oil, could be wheat, could be nickel, what have you. And then what we do down, we give you basically a summary. So what you see here in white is that is the machine natural language processing summary. And then below that, you're going to see some representative stories that make up that theme, right? We don't want to hide it. We do want our users to be able to explore, well, how did we get to that conclusion, or why did we pick that particular story? And it's up to them to determine whether it's important or not, but we're going to summarize it in a pretty concise format that allows them to look at it. And then, although we started with a now view, we've expanded that to a historical view. Right? So why am I here, AI and finance, is because this is all powered by natural language processing, and some of the ranking is provided by machine learning algorithms that we're supported by on our engineering team. So it's all here. It's all there to be consumed, and we have little signs here where it's like 71 of 871 stories, so you can get a sense of scale. Are these the biggest thematic things that are going on in this particular time, or in this particular time frame, depending on what you choose on the screen? And then we have an opportunity, and Niraj was saying this earlier about feedback being very, very important. Sometimes the machine doesn't get it right? The grammar might be off, the language may be off, or maybe it's just not a good theme. So we have the ability for a user to go in and give us a thumbs up and a thumbs down, and we have an entire group that looks at these queries, and then we use that as a feedback loop as part of our training data in order to identify better clusters of stories, and then also identify what we can do in the algorithm to tweak it to be able to read those stories and pick out better language. Right? And again, ultimately, it's trying to create an experience that allows users to get a lot of data in a small, concise place. Right now, it's built primarily for PC. I mean, we do have the experience on mobile, but right now it's really considered a desktop product. Once we get the sizing right, and we probably won't have as much story content on there to back up the themes, we probably will end up putting it on our mobile experience, but right now it's pretty much built for that terminal desktop experience, which is our bread and butter. So demonstrations of this working in a real-time environment. So this is airlines. So it's a topic-based search. And if you search on airlines on the Bloomberg terminal, this is an experience that you could see. Right? So what's going on across airlines? You may have heard of some of this. You may have heard of none of this. But what we've done is we looked across 1,021 stories in this particular case. And we've summarized the top 5 clusters of news. Right? There's a lot of media that write about the same things. There's syndicated things. So there's duplication that's out there. Again, we're trying to summarize this in a way that helps our users. And this might be something that somebody pulls up towards the end of the day. Hey, what happened across a list of stocks? This could be something that they look at in the morning because there's a particular thing. Or, hey, they read about something on the way in about an industry group they're not necessarily familiar with, but might have an effect on what they cover, what their stock coverage is. So they might go here to get something at a glance. So it's really helpful to condense this information in this way. Musk is in the news. You've probably heard enough about him, but we want to use him as an example because there's a lot of news. So he makes for a pretty picture. So what you have here is a search on Elon Musk, and these are some of the thematic things that are going on in the media about Elon Musk at the time of this search. So in this particular case, you'll see at the top, no reason to hide it, it was taken at April 1st, but it was over the last, I guess 3/31 technically, but over the last 3 months. So again, you get a sense of, from here, instead of going to every newspaper and seeing what everybody's covering and what angle everybody's covering, one-stop shop, boom, go here, and we give it to you. And I think I've seen this from like its really, really rough state of summaries to where we are right now. And I'm happy with the work that my team has done because we've come a really long way. Like, I think most of you in the room could agree, but you could also disagree, that these summaries are pretty good. From a machine-readable standpoint. They're not going to be perfect, but they're pretty good because I've seen them in a much more raw form. Another example, now we talk about complex searches. So we're taking 2 tokens, right? In this particular case, President Biden and economic news, combining those 2 things, clusterizing them again, and then creating these summaries. So you see it works over a number of different contexts. It's not just some vertical where it's just companies only. So we've taken in all this data again, and we've processed this, and it's snappy too. It's not like it takes 3 minutes to load, and you're waiting for these summaries to come up. We try to stay within that, let's call it 600 millisecond range in order to present this on the screen. So it's pretty quick in navigating and providing results, which is also cool because it's not like running a report in the background. This is all happening right now. So complex searches and then keywords. So again, these are all pretty common search contexts, but this is just to say that we're able to handle all of these different contexts. We're able to look across news using all of these methods in order to find content, and then we're able to do it very, very quickly and very, very accurately in order to produce the content that our users want. And an experience that our users want and that our users are looking for. And then once we have this, then it springboards into other things, right? Now, we don't necessarily want the machine to power everything, so let me take a step back. 90+% of the things that we do at Bloomberg with respect to AI in my group, which is our terminal news product management team, is all supervised machine learning. Right? So there's always a human in the loop. Most of it is around annotations. Most of it is around feedback. Obviously, the machines are doing the heavy lifting once we give it all the rules and the inputs that are necessary in order to produce an experience like this. But we haven't gotten to the point where we're doing unsupervised things. And I don't know if we'll ever get to that point because I think it's important to keep an eye on things, and even in unsupervised machine learning, you do. But because of the industry that we're in, I think, this is my opinion, I think it will be Very important for us to continue to have that approach with products like this going forward, right? There needs to be some sense of editorial control, if you will, on what the machine is looking at, why it's looking at it, and the type of language that it picks up to create these types of summaries. So we do police it a little bit. Other applications where this is used, so this is a trending company screen. It's one of the many monitors within the Bloomberg terminal that helps you contextualize a lot of information in one place. We do that a lot. We do that everywhere. So this is one where you're looking at companies, and this is called our trending monitor. And what this particular screenshot is showing you is this is the largest increase of reader activity on a list of companies across the world. So that little blue bar there is readership activity. These are the ones with the largest increase. With this particular screenshot, you see the list of companies, Twitter at the top, and when the screenshot was taken, the big news of the day, powered by these themes, was again the Elon Musk story and what he's attempting to do with his stake in Twitter. Right. So we have two modes on a screen like this. We have show us the NLP summaries that I've been talking about, or we have just the real-time news content. Right? This is the view where we're using those thematic things. And again, we take the top ranked theme and we put it in this box so people have a sense of what might be driving that readership interest. Right? And all that readership is, again, it's coming from the terminal, it's not the web. So it is a bit of a narrow user set. Same thing here, trending topics. So not just companies, but also topics, same concept. Here's a bunch of topics that are showing interest. People are reading these topics. So what's the driver? That's what a screen like this attempts to do. Same thing with charts. So the point of showing all these screens is to show where it's integrated, where it's used in the different workflows in our environment, where this is being applied, and how it's being leveraged. And another reason why we want to do this, I talked about human editors and what we do. Obviously, we have a newsroom at Bloomberg, and we have the top go screen, and the editors primarily control that. They pick the stories that go up there, but you see that there's a heavy lean for Bloomberg News, which is great. I think we do a good job. What we do in my group is we're agnostic to all of this. We go out and get this content, and then we want to create products out of this content and show it to our users. So one of the things that we try to do is supplement what our editors are doing on our main pages, like the Top Go News page, which are the biggest financial stories of the day that's coming out of our newsroom, and say, well, these are the biggest financial stories out of the day that are coming from all of these sources across the world. And then we integrate it in all of these places where you may want to see what might be creating the effect that you're looking at. So in this particular case, we're talking about IBM stock. Right? Pick a random day, you might see a high volume spike, you might see a particular price move. Well, what may have caused that? You probably know, because you're in that space, you're probably following that name, but maybe you don't. So something like themes is going to be able to look across all the news that's happening. Brief system design. I guess this is what we do with product management as well, although I'm not an engineer, but I'm glad I have a great team that does this. So essentially, the story comes into the Bloomberg system. So again, these millions of stories that come into our system, we ingest them, we create these summaries real time in these clusters, and we kind of look at them. Most of this is happening as the search is being conducted. We merge all of these things, right? We create these summaries. We select the summaries that are the best. So the system kind of knows, based on some confidence score, what are the best ones to show, plus some of the news ranking algorithms that we have behind the scenes. And this is obviously a very, very simplified view. There's a lot more going on behind the scenes. But ultimately, just to simplify it, it's a multi-step process, but we just broke it down to about 4. And then once we give you that summary candidate selection, we ended up showing it on the screen like I showed you before. So it's an interesting take on what we can do when we have all of this data and how we create products out of all this data and how we use NLP techniques and ML techniques in order to get it right to the user and create these products that simplify, hopefully simplify their lives because of all this data that we have on the terminal. And here are some of our design goals. The search for news stories related to the query. It's pretty obvious. Cluster-related news stories. I've used that word a whole bunch of times, so you probably got that point by now. Extract a summary for each cluster. Pretty simple and straightforward. Determine key stories from each cluster. That's that ranking component. We have a separate set of ranking components that will take one stream of news and show you the best 3 or 4 stories out of that stream, again, because everything's real time, so we have to do these things very quickly. So determine those key stories, rank those clusters, be fast, obviously. That's, again, one of the reputational things is because we're in a real-time environment, everybody expects the Bloomberg to act fast. Hopefully all of your Bloomberg experiences have been quite snappy and fast, but we understand it's technology. It doesn't always work the way that we want. But that is absolutely something that we strive to do, right, in our environment. And my key stakeholders as far as clients aren't just traders. They're the entire of the financial services, financial professional world that use our product. But because we know that traders always are looking for a fast, snappy experience because they want to make sure that they're getting everything as quickly as possible to make those quick decisions, it's built into what we do. So we take that as our goal. All right, we've got 4 minutes left. I'm ready for any questions about what we do here, what we do elsewise in the news product, or any feedback, because I am a product manager, so I want to understand how to make our system better if you have any of that feedback. Any questions?